How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Welcome back to Fireside Giants, and today we're taking a look at the Giants' offensive line. PFF gave them a pretty optimistic ranking based on last year's production, and we're going to take a look at the Giants' salary space and kind of where they sit, how the future looks for them, how Joe Schoen has put together a pretty competent offseason so far in preparing for the future, rather than trying to expedite this process of rebuilding and overspend now and restructure big contracts and put us in a pretty tough spot, like Dave Gettleman did after he was hired. So I actually am really pretty excited to talk about this offensive line. Of course, we're a little bit more optimistic than we have been in years past. Last year, we were pretty objective about the group, and everyone was saying this line looks no better than it did the year before. We've not made any improvements. And Dave Gettleman went out and told the public that he was, thinking differently, and the media had no idea what they were talking about. And lo and behold, we were right once again. So hopefully they finally fixed this thing, pretty much overhauled the entire unit except for Andrew Thomas. So I'm excited to kind of break down why PFF thinks they could be a better unit than projected based on last year's stats. Before we do dive into these segments, friend Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I think if there's two areas that the Giants needed to improve, most importantly this offseason, number one, the offensive line. I think we were all in agreement on that. But number two was probably the salary cap space. The Giants' finances were all out of whack. Dave Gettleman kind of left them in a mess. 2021 offseason was super exciting for us as Giants fans because we saw the Giants go after some really big-name free agents, and that was fun. We got Kenny Golladay. He was the top free agent on the market. Adoree Jackson, the top defensive back on the market. It was a good time, and we were all really excited, but that combined with the Leonard Williams contract, combined with a few other bad contracts, and a lot of dead salary cap space, the Giants they entered the 2022 offseason in a terrible position financially. They were millions of dollars over the cap. They had to let starters go. They had to cut starting players. And unfortunately, there was a lot of talent that was sacrificed in order for the Giants to be in a healthy cap situation for this upcoming season. But if you also take a look at the next 3 years, Joe Schoen has done a phenomenal job getting the Giants in one of the healthiest salary cap positions in the NFL. We'll talk about where PFF has them ranked in that regard as well. But I think it's very impressive to say that Joe Schoen came in and accomplished two of the toughest tasks possible. He improved the offensive line plentifully, and then he also went out there and improved the Giants' financial situation significantly. And those are two really difficult tasks that he accomplished in just his first offseason as the Giants GM. So I got to say, man, with Joe Schoen at the helm, the future is looking pretty bright after one offseason.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the Giants' salary situation for the future as the first thing, then we'll dive into a little bit of the offensive line. The Giants currently sit with about $6.2 million in available cap space. Now, the main thing to know about this is that they didn't actually restructure any big contracts to get to this number. We started the offseason with like -7 or -10 million in the cap space. We needed to get obviously over that. That included releasing Logan Ryan. That included releasing Kyle Rudolph, included releasing James Bradbury, which saved us about 10 mil. And then we did restructure Graham Gano, but his contract was kind of obsolete to begin with. It's not much. So I kind of like how Joe Schoen went about supplanting some big contracts with younger players and really drafting for scheme fits. So that way he could have some guys that will compete for starting jobs. Now, here's the thing that, why I don't really care that we release some big time starters, like the Bradburys and Logan Ryans. The reason I don't care is because we sucked with them anyway. Okay. The Giants were arguably the worst team in football last year with those high profile players on the roster. So who the hell cares if we're the worst team in football without them? You know what I mean? And I don't think we will be. But what that tells you is it comes down to coaching. Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, Wink Martindale, some of these big name coaches who have a lot of experience or lack of their experience, we'll see how they kind of develop. Wink, I trust him to be to build a good defense in year one for this Giants team, because ultimately he's built good defenses with some teams having a lot of injuries. Like last year, the Baltimore Ravens had a decimated secondary, right? At least he has Adoree Jackson as a CB1 this year, who was pretty healthy last season. At least he has Aaron Robinson, who has a lot of potential. He still has Darnay Holmes. He's got some decent players that will compete. And then you got like Maurice Kennedy and Khalil Dorsey, two guys who have experience with Baltimore system. And you got guys like Xavier McKinney, who's like a star free safety back there. And you have Azeez Ojulari, you have Blake Martinez, you got Kayvon Thibodeau, Leonard Williams. I mean, he's got a good defense to work with, right? This is not a unit that just lacks talent. They have a lot of talented players, and some of them have all pro potential that just hasn't been tapped yet. So I'm not too worried about the defensive side. I think that letting go of some of these bigger name players is ultimately what needed to be done for the health of this team down the line. And that's why we currently have $6.2 million this season, a little bit of cushion in case anybody gets injured this offseason. And then you look ahead to 2023, the Giants have a projected $54.3 million available to spend. And that's not including the potential for saving $18 million if they cut Leonard Williams. I'm not saying they should, but they could save $18 million by cutting Leonard Williams. They could save $9 million by cutting Adoree Jackson. They could save $6.7 million by cutting Kenny Golladay. And so forth. There's a couple of guys that could save a couple bucks if they wanted to take that route. But the Giants have plenty of money. And for the record, with kind of the 3-year deals being the model for contracts these days, a lot of times the first year is a low cap hit anyway. So look at that $54 million, and you can extrapolate that a lot based on the fact that you're going to keep that money down the first year, and then it's going to balloon upwards. And the Giants basically have nobody under contract. They have $172 million in team cap space after the 2023 season. So they can afford to push some money into that season next year if they feel like they can compete, which is why PFF has the Giants ranked 9th in future cap health. And basically what they said was, after spending a ton last offseason on wide receiver Kenny Golladay and cornerback Adoree Jackson, among others, the Giants knew brass went the opposite direction heading into 2022, most notably releasing Bradbury. After a lengthy attempt to find a trade partner, the old regime left some gifts behind as well, though, with, the 2022 first-round pick acquired from the Bears, turned into Evan Neal. Then you have Kayvon Thibodeau to go with Neal in the first round. And, obviously you have some big-name players here that are all on cost-controlled rookie contracts. So, in my opinion, Joe Schoen has done the perfect job maneuvering around the salary cap space. I don't even know how he could have done a better job, right? Now, there is a hole in the secondary, but that's okay. That's why you're playing in this man coverage heavy system that's going to rely a lot on getting to the quarterback quickly and forcing those quarterbacks to make premature throws. Aaron Robinson's got the speed. He's got the physicality. He can play man coverage. He can lock guys down if they don't have 10 seconds to throw the ball downfield. Last year, quarterbacks just had so much time in the pocket, and that allowed him to go downfield, and he was getting kind of beat on those deep throws a couple times, gave up 153 yards in a score last year. But, I think he was actually in pretty good spot when we're talking about where he was in coverage. He just couldn't get his head turned around. Just needs more reps and experience under his belt, and I think this is the perfect year to do it, Anthony. But, what is your impression after this, offseason so far about the health of this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think the health of this team is really important. And, you've talked about a few rookie contract players, and that's kind of what I want to discuss. These young guys that the Giants have on rookie contracts. If you take a look at what PFF put together with that massive table, it's a little intimidating at first, but if you read some of the keys, it becomes really informative and really interesting to take a look at active draft capital, where the Giants rank number 1 in the NFL, which basically means they have the largest portion of their team under rookie contracts out of any team in the NFL, meaning that they have the most cap efficient team because they have key players playing key positions on rookie contracts. So everything is basically on a bargain contract because you've got guys like Kayvon Thibodeau playing a premium position of edge rusher, and he's a really good player, projected to be one at least, and he's on a rookie contract. And you still have a quarterback on a rookie contract, and you have a really good receiver in Kadarius Toney on a rookie contract. So what this does is creates a bunch of flexibility for the Giants with their salary cap space going forward, because they're underpaying good, talented players. Basically, when you have players on rookie contracts, they're being underpaid if they're playing above their wages, and most of them are. If you have a solid starter who was drafted in the 3rd round, chances are he is outperforming his contract, his salary, by a wide margin. And then you also take a look at the Giants' effective cap space from 2022 to 2024. They rank 2nd in the NFL there, meaning from the next 3 seasons on, basically 2022, 23, and 24, the Giants have the 2nd most money to spend in the NFL. So they're going to have a lot of opportunities to sign free agents. And I don't even think Joe Schoen will, to be honest. I don't think he's going to go out there and drop a bag on any big name players and really start spending all this money. I think he's going to be pretty, careful with his spending and be very careful as to how large of contracts the Giants hand out, and just keep the money healthy so that they can get more draft capital and more young players and keep getting those bargain contract deals. And I think that's really the right way to rebuild the team. The Giants now, if you took a look at this chart basically from 2-3 years ago, you would say, wow, the Giants are screwed in salary cap space and it's going to be a long rebuild. But now you're talking about Joe Schoen stepping in here, cleaned it up. The cap space is perfectly fine, and actually it's one of the healthiest in the NFL. You're saying now the Giants are in store for a very quick and very exciting rebuild that's going to take place over the next 2 years.
That's absolutely right. And so let's take a look at the offensive line, because this is a group that we've hated, to be quite frank, over the past couple of years. Just kind of feel like we've been lied to one too many times. But then you go out and you see the Giants get really lucky. And, I'll give credit to Joe Schoen for taking Evan Neal, but anyone in their right mind would have made the same decision. I'm not sure previous guys would have made that decision based on the fact that they probably weren't in their right mind. But Evan Neal was an easy pick, in my opinion. He locks down that right tackle spot. He's got elite run blocking immediately, above average pass pro at the collegiate level. We'll see if it translates. Playing in Alabama definitely has that translatable effect. But PFF actually ranked them 18th. And I feel like that is a little high based on the fact that we don't really know what they are yet. We haven't seen them play a single snap together. We haven't seen pretty much any continuity. There's a bunch of rookies. Josh Azudu. Of course, you got Evan Neal, and then John Feliciano has barely played center in his career, so he might as well be a rookie. These are all guys who, at the end of the day, have never played a snap together aside from Shane Lemieux and Andrew Thomas. And even then, I don't trust that combo, more so on the Shane Lemieux side. But 18th seems high to me, but I could see how they land there in terms of that's the finalized kind of position for them, which would be a monstrous increase in improvement, right? Because last year they ranked 30th in pass protection and pass blocking. Moving up to 18th would be massive. That would be a step in the right direction. And I think run blocking, they end up in the top 15, because I do think that they're going to be a lot better in that category. Someone asked me today on Twitter, do you think that Daniel Jones is gonna have his best season because of this offensive line? And I said, I think he'll be a lot better, but I think the real person who's going to benefit from this is Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is going to have probably his resurgent season if he can maintain his health, because Evan Neal, Daniel Bellinger, and Mark Lewinsky are vicious blockers, absolutely vicious blockers, and running behind those guys. And then you have Sterling Shepard out wide. You got Kenny Golladay, good receivers who can block outside too. Run that outside zone scheme and just get him out into space and let Saquon make moves. And he's going to have awesome blockers out in front. So I think run blocking wise, we're going to see probably the best line we've seen in a decade from this team. And in terms of pass protection, I think the 18th could be somewhere where they land at the end of the day. What do you think?
I mean, I could totally see that. I definitely think that the Giants' run blocking is shaping up to be better than their pass blocking, just taking a look at the personnel. Evan Neal, I mean, most rookie offensive tackles struggle in pass protection early in their career anyway. That's kind of more of the learning curve, but they do usually pick it up right away in the running game if they were really good at run blocking in college. So Evan Neal is probably going to be a pretty dominant run blocker from day one. We know Mark Lewinsky is a better run blocker than he is a pass protector, so that as well is going to be super important to take a look at. So the right side of the line, you are expecting better run blocking than pass blocking. Then you take a look at the left side of the line. Andrew Thomas is a very well-rounded player. I think he's got a lot of, he's got a very clear skill set. He does everything very well. He's a good pass blocker. He's a good run blocker. But if you want to pick where he's been better at in the NFL so far, you are going to say run blocking, because like I mentioned with Evan Neal, his rookie season was a struggle in pass protection. He really did iron out a lot of those flaws in his second season. So I do think that, the left side of the line with Andrew Thomas protecting Daniel Jones's blind side, that's going to be good. I think he's going to be a good pass protector. But then you take a look at left guard, and it's a real huge question mark there with Shane Lemieux, maybe Max Garcia, maybe Joshua Azidu. And if Joshua Azidu does take the starting role, he is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. In my opinion, I don't think Shane Lemieux is very good at either run blocking or pass blocking based on what we've seen in the NFL. But if you had to pick one, he is a better run blocker just because he was the worst pass blocker in the NFL in 2020, according to every metric. So you take a look at that and you say, wow, okay, the Giants are definitely going to have a better run blocking offensive line going forward in 2022, which is interesting, though, because you take a look at Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, and the offenses that they have ran in the past. They're pass-heavy offenses. So could it spell trouble for the Giants in a way? Maybe. But I do think that no matter what, the Giants are getting significantly improved offensive line play in both facets of the game this year. And that's going to be major for both Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. And I'm really excited to see where this offensive line ranks at the end of the year. 18, that's kind of middle of the road, but it wouldn't shock me if the Giants offensive line was middle of the road, if they were a very average unit that ranks somewhere in the middle of the league, because A, there's a lot of really bad offensive lines in the NFL, and B, Andrew Thomas is a quality starter. Mark Lewinsky is a quality starter. Evan Neal is going to be a quality starter. So you have 3 out of 5 offensive linemen that are quality starters. That's more than half of the unit. I understand it's not an even split, but 3 out of 5 being above average, what more could you ask for? In the NFL, that is really, really good. There are not that many teams I can say, like, we have 3 guaranteed solid starters on the offensive line. They're hard to come by. So I wouldn't be shocked to see the Giants offensive line rank in the top 20 at all this year. And I'm really hoping that this is the year that we finally have an offensive line that can achieve that accomplishment.
Well, we can hope, because I mean, I'm sure Daniel Jones is praying to the good lords that the offensive line comes through and gives him a chance to really showcase what he's capable of doing. But I'd love to hear your guys' opinions below in the YouTube comments. Thoughts on the offensive line. Thoughts if 18th is a healthy ranking. If you think they should be better or worse. And of course, you know, Joe Shane's kind of, I would go as far as to say, brilliance in managing this cap space. Of course, we have a long way to go. But I think he did a really great job managing the cap situation. Now let's see if the players he drafted pan out, and let's see if the coaching staff that he's hired can put together a competent team that wins games or at least stays pretty competitive in them, and can take steps forward, because we just can't afford to see another setback. I mean, I don't know how it could get much worse than last year, but let's at least have some discipline on the field, execute, show a little bit of, you know, just efficiency and production rather than just kneeling or quarterback sneaking on second down to end the season. That was a low point, but, you know, moving forward, hopefully we can have a much better experience as Giants fans. We'll be here for it. Of course, we're waiting for the positive times. It's been a couple of years of just pure torture and depression, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Kayvon Thibodeau's there waiting for us, and Evan Neal waiting there for us to bring us to the Holy Land, my friends. But make sure, as always, to like and subscribe below on the YouTube channel. And as always, we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.